The Boston Red Sox starting rotation is in big trouble with the latest news of Lucas Giolito. More on today's Locked On Red Sox.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast, and I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed for free. And honestly, if you don't love free stuff, that's on you. So might as well take advantage and start your day off the right way with Locked On Red Sox. Locked On is your team every day. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code LockedOnMLB in all lowercase for a first deposit match up to $100. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Red Sox, and I take you with some unfortunate news into today's show. Out of Boston, news broke on Tuesday morning that starting pitcher Lucas Giolito was diagnosed with a partial UCL tear and flexor strain. What does this mean for the Red Sox rotation? Lots to dive into today with that. But the biggest thing about this that we need to note is that he will undergo additional testing, but the initial diagnosis is basically saying he might need season-ending surgery to repair this, which is just absolutely detrimental to the Boston Red Sox starting rotation. It's such a brutal blow for a team who just signed him to a 2-year, $38.5 million contract that allows him to opt out following the 2024 season. But assuming additional opinions and tests confirm the team's initial diagnosis, it would pretty much be a foregone conclusion that his decision on next year's $19 million player option will be exercised, because why wouldn't he do it if he can't pitch at all in 2024? And that's just disappointing, because that means basically if he misses the entire 2024 season, then he's going to come back in 2025 and we're not going to know how he's going to perform. And there are already question marks surrounding Giolito to begin with, because a lot of the off-field stuff that happened last year between him getting traded to a couple different teams, going through a divorce, and then it affecting his performance pretty negatively. We didn't know coming in how effectively he was going to be able to perform, especially early on when he's still trying to get back into the groove of things and adjust to being in another organization. So there were already some underlying concerns and question marks there surrounding Giolito. But now if he ends up missing the entirety of the season, he has to come back in 2025, and the Red Sox are going to hope that he can bounce back to what he was prior to the injury. Definitely not promising. If I'm the Red Sox, I'm hitting the panic button a little bit now when it comes to the starting rotation after this was announced. I mean, if you get season-ending surgery, one can hope your arm will bounce back after that. But look at Chris Sale. He went through Tommy John surgery, and there was a lot of optimism and a lot of hope when he came back that he could bounce back and be better than ever. But that just was not the case. He unfortunately was unable to stay healthy in Boston after he came back, and it led to the Red Sox ultimately trading him to the Braves for Vaughn Grisham, who also was announced is now injured and might miss opening day too. So it's pretty ironic, because the pitcher that the Red Sox signed to replace Chris Sale is injured and might not be able to pitch at all during the season. And the guy they brought in the trade of Chris Sale also is injured. So it's just a big spiral effect on the Boston Red Sox right now. But Giolito, if he does pick up that player option for 2025, the team would be granted a $14 million club option for the 2026 season. So that would mean that the Red Sox would have the choice in 2026 if they want to bring him back or not. Giolito could then convert that into a mutual option by pitching 140 innings at least in 2025. So he'd have to stay healthy during the 2025 season, and that would be banking on him being able to pitch a good amount of innings. And we don't know if he'd be able to bounce back if he misses the entirety of the 2024 season. So it might not be as much of a given that he'd be able to pitch that many innings. So it's definitely a huge concern. Giolito's 29 and signed his current deal in hopes of putting a rough couple of years behind him and re-entering the market in a stronger position. From 2022 to 23, he logged 346 innings, but pitched to an ineffective 4.89 ERA between the White Sox, Angels, and Guardians. A spike in his home run rate contributed heavily to the downturn in performance, but he maintained a better than average 25.5% strikeout rate against a slightly higher than average 9% walk rate in that span. But that spike in his home run rate really was the primary thing that led to a lot of his struggles, just giving up the long ball a lot more. He fanned nearly 31% of his opponents against a stronger 8% walk rate in his 2019 to 21 peak. That was when he was really at his best. That decreased significantly over the last couple seasons. So that's a concern for Boston. It already was a concern to begin with, but it also brings to light now the hole that the Red Sox still have yet to address this offseason, which is that they need innings. And Giolito was a pretty durable, healthy pitcher prior to this happening. I mean, he did have off-field issues that kind of caused a lot of his struggles, but overall he was a pretty healthy pitcher. And of course, it's like, yeah, now he comes to Boston and he starts to face this issue of maybe potentially missing his first season in a Red Sox uniform. It's just, you can't make this up. It seems like the Red Sox in some ways might be a little bit cursed when it comes to this stuff. And the biggest thing is the Red Sox struggled with having starting pitchers who could pitch deep into games last year. And as a result, the bullpen was pitching out of place, guys coming into games that you might not have wanted to see in that particular situation, because Alex Cora eventually had no choice and had to throw guys in situations where they normally wouldn't throw because of the fact that some of his main guys out of the pen were fatigued and tired and feeling overworked and feeling like they had to pull the weight for some of the starters who couldn't get through 4 or 5 innings consistently, and especially could not get into the 6th inning consistently. So that was a problem, and it remains a problem. And it was an issue even prior to Lucas Giolito getting hurt. He was coming in and was going to hopefully help try to rectify the situation and eat some innings for Boston to provide the starting pitching with somebody who every 5th day can pitch deeper into games and relieve the bullpen a little bit. But it was just unfortunate when he just started experiencing discomfort in his right elbow after his most recent throwing session. And then when the news came out that he likely will end up maybe needing season-ending surgery, I was like, are you kidding me right now? These things just keep happening to the Red Sox. And so they need innings still, and that was something they never really addressed going into this offseason, and they still haven't addressed it now. And the Giolito situation isn't bringing that issue to light. It's just amplifying it even more and making it even more of a problem to showcase that the Red Sox didn't do their due diligence by going out and getting somebody who could eat innings more consistently in this offseason. And I'm not saying they need an ace caliber starter. I mean, they do, but they're not going to get one at this point in the offseason. They just didn't want to trade for one, and there are no free agents available anymore who are truly an ace caliber pitcher right now. So that's just too much to ask for at this point. And like I said, I do think Brayan Bello is going to have a big season this year, and he eventually can be the team's ace. He is not right now, but I do think he can be eventually. So now it's a matter of where do they go from here? Because they still need innings, and with a guy who they thought was kind of going to be that platoon of the starting rotation, I think they were anticipating him to be the number one starter. Where do they go? Who do they bring in, if anybody, that could give them some innings? And coming up, I'm going to be talking a little bit about a guy who might make sense for Boston now that Giolito has been sidelined. Are you looking for a super fun place to play fantasy sports? PrizePicks is the absolute best place for that. Want to play alongside some of PrizePicks' favorite players like Meek Mill and Sugar Sean O'Malley? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each week. Conference tournaments are here, which means the biggest moments in college basketball are getting closer. Be a part of the action on PrizePicks for both men's and women's college basketball. PrizePicks will give you a lot of different sports to get yourself involved in. PrizePicks is actually the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's literally just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app today and again use code LOCKEDONMLB and you can get that first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. It really is so easy. And a good thing to go on today is Caitlin Clark hitting more than 30 points and LeBron James recording more than 7 assists. Both are safe bets and both are available on PrizePicks. So check that out today if you want to start winning some money. Also, you should check out Locked On Sports Today, which is now available on YouTube and Amazon Fire TV on the free Fire TV Channels app. We've launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV Channels app, and it will keep you caught up in all things Boston Red Sox all the time, and I promise you will not be disappointed, so check that out today. One pending issue the Boston Red Sox have had for a long time now is a lack of starting pitchers that can pitch deep into games. And if you look at the makeup of starting pitchers they have now going into the 2024 season in Nick Pivetta, Brian Bayo, and Cutter Crawford, Bayo is the only one of those three starters who is actually capable of consistently giving you quite a few innings, although that doesn't apply as much during the day. He does need to focus on his daytime starts and improving those. But Cutter Crawford is not eating a lot of innings, and Nick Pivetta has pitched both in the bullpen and as a starter quite a bit, and he was giving you average numbers of innings per start and about 2 to 3 innings in relief appearances. So you don't really know what you're going to get from him. And then Lucas Giolito was supposed to be in the mix there as another starter, but unfortunately might end up missing the whole season. So the question now becomes, where do the Red Sox go from here? They still need to get those innings, and there are some guys out there who could be cheaper options that the Red Sox could look into. And one interesting option is Michael Lorenzen. He pitched for the Phillies in 2023, and he's also pitched for the Cincinnati Reds, Los Angeles Angels, and Detroit Tigers. He was an all-star in 2023 and pitched a no-hitter on August 9th. He had a good season last year. His overall career numbers are not super amazing. I mean, in 2021, he pitched up to a 5.59 ERA. But one thing to note about Lorenzen is he will give you innings. In 2023, he pitched 153 innings over 29 games. So he averaged about 5+ innings per start. So essentially, he was finishing the 5th inning and beginning the 6th inning in a lot of his starts in 2023. And obviously, how that played out differed each time, but on average, you could expect him to give you 5 solid innings and pitch into the sixth. That's key for a team like the Red Sox who really just need innings right now. He could be a good fit. I mean, his 2023 pitch distribution allowed him to be successful. His fastball averaged about 94 miles an hour. He also utilized an 85-mile-per-hour slider about 30% of the time. He also had a changeup that he used 21% of the time that averaged 85 miles an hour. And then he had a curveball and cutter, which he barely used, really minuscule percentages of times that he used those. So his fastball, slider, and changeup are his 3 primary pitches, all of which he used quite a bit and was able to mix up a lot of the time. And they were averaging pretty fast rates. So he was able to get those swings and misses, and he was able to strike guys out. He actually struck out 111 batters in 2023. Now, the reason I say he could be on the cheaper side is he is 32, and last year he did have a very good season, but overall he's a pretty average, slightly above average pitcher. He won't give the Red Sox ace caliber stuff, nor do they necessarily need that from him because, like I said, I think the standard is no longer we need to acquire an ace because that simply just isn't going to happen this offseason. It's more, can we bring in a guy who's going to help that innings count and allow the Red Sox to get a lot more productivity from somebody. And if you have a guy who's going to come in and will, for the most part, give you 5+ solid innings, that's the type of guy the Red Sox should be going for. I mean, when you think about pitchers who have signed this offseason, a lot of them are guys who signed with the team they were already playing with or are seeking more money and they haven't been signed yet, like Jordan Montgomery and Blake Snell. Maybe the Red Sox don't want to sign a guy like that. And if that's the case, it's unfortunate, but they can still feel like they're fixing the rotation by going towards cheaper options. And Lorenzen is a guy who, again, is coming off of an all-star season and definitely showcased some of his stuff that he is capable of when he was in Philly. Since the Red Sox are, not looking to commit to long-term deals with players, Lorenzen is a guy who could slot right in that could be looking for a shorter-term deal and be the type of guy that the Red Sox need to help them find success again. I mean, with this rotation right now, wouldn't you rather have him come in who's a proven starter and will give you those innings and gave them to you last year and have him be the number 5 starter and conserve guys like Whitlock or Houck who can still pitch out of the bullpen because they've been proven to be effective out of the pen, and you're not wasting one of them as a starter and then in big moments when you need somebody to come in out of the pen and hold a 1-run lead in a high leverage situation, wouldn't you rather have Whitlock and Houck available who both have showcased very good stuff when pitching 2 or 3 innings at a time? This move would allow you to be able to do that because as of right now, it's sounding like the Red Sox are planning on making Houck a starter, but in my opinion, you could switch Houck with Lorenzen, and it gives this rotation a whole different feel because then you could still have Bayo, Crawford, and Pivetta in there and have Lorenzen in there instead of Houck. And he's a guy who could make a lot of sense as that number 5 guy who will eat up innings. He can give you those strikeouts. In 2023, he struck out guys at about a 17.8% rate compared to a 7.5% walk rate in those 153 innings that he pitched. So you definitely need to prioritize length when you're acquiring guys this offseason. Still, if you do acquire anybody else, which I really hope that they do, and you want to look at some of those numbers of, okay, what can he do? What can he bring to the table? Another thing to note about him that was interesting from last year is his left on base percentage in 2023 was 69.8%. So he was giving up base hits and allowing base runners, but not allowing them to score a lot of the time. That 69.8% left on base percentage is important because it shows that he can pitch out of jams, and that's something the Red Sox absolutely need. So Lorenzen makes a lot of sense from the standpoint of balancing out the rotation a little bit more with a proven guy who might not give you the best stuff, but he'll give you innings, and it'll create a whole different feel for a team that is trying to play a little bit of a guessing game too much when it comes to that starting rotation and filling in that other slot. So he could be the guy who can help solve some of those problems, and then you're able to keep Houck in the bullpen where he absolutely thrives, and he can pitch 2 or 3 innings at a time without feeling like there's all this pressure on him to go deeper in the game. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Red Sox try to work out a deal with Lorenzen. He's somebody who could make a lot of sense for Boston, but it'll be interesting to see if that actually happens. And coming up, you might be asking who fits into that 5th spot, because I listed 4 definite starters in my little list before. So coming up, I'm going to be going over what the starting rotation alignment could look like at the end of this offseason. If you're ever in car trouble and looking for somebody to help you, eBay Motors is absolutely the place for you. I'll be the first to admit that I really don't know much about cars at all, and I've been able to lean on eBay so much to help me out. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. eBay Motors is a great way to feel like you're never lost when it comes to car trouble. So utilize their services today. You absolutely won't be disappointed. You also should utilize Locked On Sports today, as we as a network have launched the first ever National Sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV Channels app. So if you're looking for a way to stay caught up in all things going on in sports, that will be a great way to, no matter what time zone you're in, feel like you're caught up. So head to Locked On Sports today as well. The Boston Red Sox found out that there's a good chance they might miss Lucas Giolito for the whole season in 2024, which is such a blow to a starting pitching rotation that already had question marks to begin with. And now with even more question marks in there, what does the Red Sox starting rotation actually look like? As of right now, Brian Bayo, Cutter Crawford, and Nick Pivetta are 3 definite players that the Red Sox seem to want to have in the starting rotation. Craig Breslow also mentioned that Cooper Criswell has a good chance to start in the Red Sox rotation in 2024. My problem with that is he's so unproven in that capacity. In 2023, he only pitched in 10 games and none of them were starts. He only pitched 33 innings. He did strike out 27 batters in those 33 innings pitched, but recorded a 573 earned run average. You want a guy to start who can strike out a lot of hitters. No doubt about that. That's definitely something he has going for him, but he doesn't have the best command, and it's going to take him time to get acclimated to being in Boston. So do we really feel like he could be a consistent starting pitcher that can help get the job done? I'm not super high on that idea by Mr. Breslow. Of course, the Red Sox probably have seen things in him that we as a fan base haven't seen, because he's been around the team and he's been working with Andrew Bailey and he's been able to kind of get himself familiar with pitching in Boston. But it's so hard to take a chance on a guy like that without easing him into it. This is only going to create more pressure on him to immediately contribute. and be able to be a force out of the rotation early on. And that's not really a fair place to put him in. You want to have guys who can compete for sure. And he could end up being in a surprise player for the Red Sox in the rotation. He could be a guy who comes out there and absolutely shoves. We really don't know, but it's again just adding another question mark to the rotation, and I wouldn't want to put a lot of pressure on him, especially because he didn't pitch in a lot of games last year. So if he does come into the rotation, then you're looking at Bello, Pivetta, Houck, Criswell, and Crawford as your starting five as of right now in this moment. But if they were to sign Lorenzen, like I talked about in the last segment, he could slot in there. You could take Tanner Houck out of the rotation and keep him in the bullpen. Then you're still looking at Criswell being a starter, but at least you know that Houck could be your go-to guy out of the pen to relieve him if he ends up getting into some trouble. But you could avoid all of that altogether and still sign somebody like Jordan Montgomery, who at this point, since he isn't signed, might be willing to take a little bit of a lesser deal than he wanted early on in free agency when it started. So you're then looking at a guy who could come in and be, a number 2 or number 3 guy who at least is a proven veteran. And he had produced a lot last year. I mean, he pitched on the World Series team. He was a huge part of that rotation, and the Red Sox could definitely use some veteran experience in that rotation right now, and he could be somebody who could provide that. So if they do sign Montgomery and he helps provide some of that leadership that they need in the rotation, then you're looking at a starting rotation of Jordan Montgomery, Brayan Bello, Michael Lorenzen, if you sign him, Cutter Crawford, and Nick Pivetta. And that alone changes the mentality about the starting rotation a lot, because you have a guy in Jordan Montgomery who, yes, isn't an ace, but we've already established the Red Sox just aren't going to have an ace in 2024. But he at least can be trusted to give you some consistency throughout the season. Michael Lorenzen, another veteran who's coming off of a fantastic 2023 season where he pitched a lot of innings as well. And then you have Brayan Bello, Cutter Crawford, and Nick Pivetta, all of which are hopefully going to be able to produce, but Bello and Crawford especially are still developing, finding their form, figuring out what kind of pitcher they're going to be. And Pivetta pitched a lot out of the bullpen last year and looked better than he did as a starter. So how is he going to be in the rotation? So then you still have some question marks, but it gives a better overall feel to the rotation because you feel like you're going to have more guys who can eat up innings to relieve some of that work from the bullpen, because at the end of the day, this team can't be competitive at all without a bullpen that is able to pitch effectively without getting worn out. So at the end of the day, you need to have guys come in who can give you those innings. The Red Sox realistically should be signing 2 starters to slot in, but I'm still not seeing them actually deciding to sign Montgomery. I think it would have to be something where it works out directly in their favor and they are able to get him on basically a bargain deal that fits into the Red Sox budget that John Henry has now sent. So if they do that, great. I still think they could use one more guy, because then you look at a guy in Montgomery who comes in and is able to just completely relieve some of that stress of some of the other guys. So my ideal starting rotation on opening day would be Jordan Montgomery, Brayan Bello, Nick Pivetta, Cutter Crawford, and Michael Lorenzen. He doesn't need to be anything or higher up than a 5 guy, Lorenzen, but at least you know that he's coming off of a season where he pitched a lot of innings. So that would be what it would look like for me if I could write down my ideal starting 5 right now for Boston in that rotation and just give the piece of paper to John Henry and Craig Breslow. I would say, here you go. This is what I would love for it to be. And overall, that looks a lot better than what they have going right now. At the end of the day, the Lucas Giolito news did not ruin this rotation. It already was kind of in a place where there were a ton of question marks, and this is only just validating those question marks and bringing them to light even more. At the end of the day, the Red Sox did not do enough this offseason to acquire starting pitching depth, and it's coming back to bite them now. And the question is, where do they go from here? Time will tell, but only Craig Breslow and the rest of the Red Sox front office can make that decision. Hopefully they decide to make a good one, but we'll see what they decide to do. As always, though, keep the faith. Opening day is right around the corner. We are so close. Go Red Sox, and I will catch you on the flip side.